Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is John Vine, and what we're going to be talking about today are 5 things that I've learned, as a software developer throughout the years in my career. When I started as a developer, I was definitely way less confident. I was definitely, a lot more naive, and I just didn't know as much as I do now. But now I've been, working in the field for a couple of years at this point, and I figured, I could share some stuff with you. If you're new to the channel, what we do here is we talk about software engineering. I try to give you guys tips from my experience to help you achieve your goals of becoming a full-time software developer. If you like the content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, when you start off learning how to code, you have this idea in your head of what it is, but then throughout the years, you quickly realize that, that's not true at all, right? Learning how to code when I was at school was completely different than, the first time I coded at one of my internships, and that was completely different than when I actually started working full time. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and I figured I'd share some valuable ones here today. So the first one is that you want to learn from your mistakes. You want to learn from the mistakes you've made and the questions you've asked, right? So what I mean by this is whenever you learn something new, you take a note of it, right? Because what you don't want happening is that you make the same mistake twice, right? You don't want to ask someone the same question twice. You don't want to make the same mistake twice. It basically makes you look less professional, and really it makes you less efficient, right? It makes you less efficient, and if you're working as part of a team, it makes the whole team less efficient because, you're asking multiple questions, you're wasting people's time. So the most valuable thing you can do is, kind of keep a notepad or, a Google Sheet online. But yeah, guys, if you ask someone a question and they answer, then a couple of months later, you want to do it again. You don't really want to ask them twice, right? You want to be able to know how to do it and just do it again. So taking notes is very, very important, and learning from your mistakes is very important as well. The second thing that I've learned is to actually ask as many questions as you can. I know a lot of people say this, but a lot of people are, scared to ask questions. You might think that you're going to look stupid. You might think that, everyone knows the answer, you're the only one, but, definitely not true. If you have a question, the odds are someone else that also has that question, especially if you're working as part of a team. So there's definitely no such thing as a stupid question. I know that there are stupid questions, but in the workplace, don't be afraid to ask any question. You'll oftentimes find that you're wasting more time being scared to ask the question and not asking it. You're actually wasting more time and wasting more resources than if you had just asked the question, had a simple conversation, and then it was solved there, right? What you have to realize is that at any kind of job, there's always going to be a learning curve, and obviously when you come to a problem, you want to obviously try and solve it by yourself first, but you definitely don't want to leave it, a couple of days if it could have just been solved by like a 5-minute conversation, right? Not only that, but if there's something that you don't know that's going on, it will inevitably come up, right? You're going to have to ask it at some point. You're going to need the solution at some point. And rather than just waiting, just ask, get it over with, and move on. The third most important thing I've learned, well, I guess there's not really an order, but another really important thing I learned is that you can't go into being a software developer if you're going to be like really, really risk averse, or if you're going to be super afraid to fail. Because what you have to understand is eventually you're going to fail. Eventually, a line of code that you wrote is going to break. Eventually something in production is going to, go wrong. And the only thing you can change is how you react to failure, right? What you have to do is, embrace failure, accept that it's going to happen inevitably, and don't try to avoid it, because it will happen. Because when you try to avoid it, right, that's when you start taking less risks. That's when you start doing things differently. But real progress and real innovation is made when you take the risks, right? So you have to not be afraid to fail. You have to be ready for it, embrace it, because you have to understand that it will happen eventually. It's happened to me, and every time I failed in my career, it's been a learning opportunity. And oftentimes, the best learning experiences are when you fail. So guys, don't be afraid. It's going to happen, and it's only like a learning experience. So it can only go up from here. Now, the important thing is, if you make a bad mistake, if you fail, the important thing is that you don't let it happen again, right? This goes back to the first point that, learn from your mistakes, learn from them, and don't make them twice. Because, the first time you make a mistake, it's okay. But the second time, it's like, okay, come on, what's going on? Are you not learning? And that's when things get a bit dicey, right? The fourth thing is that you, as a software developer, you have to constantly be uncomfortable and be learning new things, right? If you're constantly in like an uncomfortable situation where you're being challenged, where you're growing, where you're learning, that's probably a good indication that you're in a good, job, that you're being challenged, that you're actually still learning things. But otherwise, if you just are in a very comfortable situation, you're not really learning too much, things aren't too hard, and you're just going through the motions, that's probably an indication that your skills aren't improving and you're not actually doing as much as you should be. Also, it could be an indication that you need to switch jobs and kind of start a new position because you're not learning as much and you've kind of reached the end of the road with where you're currently at. Basically what I'm trying to say is, guys, don't get too comfortable. The foundation of software engineering is being uncomfortable, breaking things, trying new things, and adapting very quickly. So this all ties up with not being afraid to fail and asking questions. You have to be uncomfortable. I know sometimes asking questions can be uncomfortable too, right, guys? So it's all how uncomfortable you can be, and I guess like how comfortable you can be with being uncomfortable, right? It's always a great thing to do, to get out of your comfort zone and kind of learn something new and try something different, right? One of the biggest things that I've learned, and this is actually something that has come more recently, is that sometimes projects can just take a very, very long time, right? Sometimes you have a set deadline that you have in your head, and you're at work and you're working on it with your team, and you think it's going to take 2 months. It ends up taking 3 or 4, right? It happens, and obviously it's not ideal, but this is just something that I've learned along the way, is that oftentimes you have a certain deadline, and certain projects are going to take a very long time, especially when, for example, you're working with like a legacy code base with a very big app with a lot of code that wasn't touched in a very, very long time. Things are going to come up. There's going to be bugs. There's going to be different things that come up, especially as like developers leave and developers join. Features kind of get added and removed to a sprint, right? Certain projects, the scope of them kind of grows and shrinks as time goes on. And so, one of the things is just projects take a very long time. I wasn't really aware of this, but, over the past couple of years, I've definitely realized that some projects will definitely take a long time, and that's not your fault. It could be your fault, but most of the time it's not going to be your fault, and that's okay. Now, to finish off this video, I figured I'd add a couple of quick fire kind of tips, some really important things and chunks of knowledge that I'm going to drop on you guys. So first off, I know this might be pretty obvious, but finishing a project is extremely important. So many times in my life, I've started on a side project, gotten to like 70-80%, things got hard, I scrapped it, started a new one. This is not what you guys want to do, especially if you're learning how to code. This is not the behavior you want, and this is something that took me a very long time to realize, obviously. Finishing a project is so important because it builds your confidence, and subconsciously it lets you know that you can actually finish the project and you can actually code, right? So many times in early on in my career, I would like kind of jump from project to project, and I'd never see one to completion. But completing a project start to finish is super important, and it really teaches you a lot of lessons that you won't get jumping from project to project. You really want to see it through, to just show yourself that you can do it, and to show others that you're a competent developer. Finally, what you're at risk of, if you've been working, if you're a full-time developer, is you get too complacent, right? After a while, with any job, you're going to get the hang of it. You're going to kind of know how to do it. It'll take you less effort, but you're going to be like kind of getting paid the same. So after a year or two, you might get complacent at your work. And what I want to let you guys know is, don't let it get to that point, right? If that's kind of happening, it might be time to, get a new position. But at the same time, you don't want to move around too much, right? Because no one's going to want to hire someone that, like, if they look at your resume, they see that you only work places for 6 months. No one's really going to want to hire you. And if you spend too much time at a certain position, then your knowledge might become obsolete. You might kind of lose touch with other techs that you were using, and you could kind of get trapped in one certain role, right? So you want to kind of find that balance of when to look for a new job, when to work on a new project, and you'll be golden. So guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. These are just a couple of tips that I think are super useful to know, especially if you're early on into your software development career. I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and also leave a comment down below if you think there's anything I've missed, if there's anything you want to add. Yeah, just let me know if you guys liked the video. As always, take it easy, enjoy your coding, and have a good day, guys.